don't remember the 1978 Emmy Awards. Nobody does, because nobody watched them. Sure, all the big names and beautiful faces were there, but America had already made other plans that night.
Here on CBS, ABC stars and shows will receive awards. So will the stars and shows belonging to NBC. So proud are ABC and NBC of their very own shows and stars who will win Emmys here on CBS tonight that they have scheduled against us a 3-hour debut of the most expensive new series ever made.
The story of Battlestar Galactica is a long, twisted tale that starts more than 10 years before that night. It's the early 60s, and future Battlestar creator Glenn Larson is in a band called the Four Preps.
We were with Capitol Records about 12 years. We had a number of hits. The Beach Boys give us credit for having come to Redondo Beach High School and inspiring them.
Not a bad claim to fame. 13 top 100 hits and an appearance in the beach film Gidget. But there's more to life than surfing, playing guitar, and beach parties. There's also television.
I was fascinated by television. And while I was on the road with the Four Preps, I carried a little 4-inch Sony with me so I'd keep up on things like The Fugitive and 12 O'Clock High. But I loved broadcasting, and I'd always intended to get into that business. So I started trying to write while I was on the road.
So now it's 1967, and Larson has written a screenplay called Adam's Ark. It's a cosmic tale starring a Howard Hughes-like character who leads a group of prodigies into outer space.
Howard Hughes' computers had projected the end of the world, had given certain hostilities and logical conclusions and projections. We had only so much time left. My story started off with all these people being invited to this huge edifice out in the desert. The #1 scientist, #1 doctor, #1 sports figure, #1 anything. And a couple of our heroes make their way up to what becomes a flight deck, and they realize that this building has lifted off and is heading out into space.
The story was a bit far out, but hey, it was the 1960s, and through his music connections, he managed to talk the king of space-age bachelor pad music, Henry Mancini, into setting up a meeting at Universal Studios.
I pitched Adam's Ark, and the bottom line is, even though we took it around and tried to get some people interested, science fiction was dead.
He was not able to produce it at that time because Star Trek was an abysmal failure on television. It never cracked the top 50, and nobody wanted to buy Adam's Ark at that point.
They hate us with every fiber of their existence.
So it looked like Adam's Ark would never see the light of day, but at least the script got Larson in the door, and it was good enough to get him gigs writing for TV shows like It Takes a Thief and The Virginian. Over the next 10 years, Larson continued climbing the ranks, executive producing such shows as Quincy and The Hardy Boys. But this is where the story takes a strange twist. It's now 1977, and the world is about to be introduced to a film called Star Wars.
I just thought it was terrific. It was a whole new generation of special effects.
It was an amusement park ride. It had thrills and chills. It had humor. It had dashing characters, damsels in distress. It was a great audience-pleasing movie.
In Hollywood, stealing is called borrowing, and in 1977, everyone wanted to borrow the Star Wars science fiction formula. Outer space was back in, and Larson knew it. Adam's Ark, outer space, science fiction, money. Funny how dollars change opinions. Universal was suddenly interested in a script they passed on 10 years earlier, but that didn't matter to Larson. Adam's Ark was back.
And the networks were now interested in science fiction. So we pitched it.
It was a sensational script, whether Star Wars existed or not, but based on the success of Star Wars, it was an opportunity to sell that series.
I did an update on it to make it more current. I even had discussions with Isaac Asimov about this kind of thing. Instead of Adam, I made it Adama, and he was leading a wagon train toward Earth.
The idea is that out in distant, distant space, there are 12 colonies of man, and they've been fighting a long war against a robotic enemy called the Cylons. And in a sneak attack, sort of like Pearl Harbor, the entire defense fleet for the humanity is destroyed, and the people are left with the option, where are we going to go? And they look into their most ancient mythology and say, we're going to find the lost 13th colony, which just happens to be called Earth.
Pretty cool concept, but would you watch a show called Adam's Ark? Remember, it's Hollywood, and we love to borrow. Star Wars, Death Star. How about Battlestar? Not bad. Give it an exotic twist. Battlestar Galactica. ABC agreed on the title, but how was Larson going to pull this off?
We had to go in and tell them where future episodes would go and how those would work and so forth and so on. And they extracted a certain amount of blood from us in terms of, how we would sustain this as a series.
The answer was simple: exploding spaceships. Larson needed a special effects guru. Who better to do a Star Wars-like show than the guy who did Star Wars, John Dykstra?
John loved the project. And John said, I think I could bring a team to this and really make this special.
The ideal team would be the same group of people that we use to do the Star Wars work.
Touchdown. Major score for Larson. Dykstra and Industrial Light and Magic were the best, but it meant Dykstra would find himself back in bed with his old boss, Star Wars creator George Lucas.
Uh-oh. And we said, we'd like to use this facility to do this Battlestar Galactica show. I was not privy to the actual conversations, but the presumption is that George vetted the material that was being presented for production in his facility. And he said, fine.
Like a protective parent, Lucas became nervous about similarities between Battlestar and Star Wars. He called a meeting between Glenn Larson and Star Wars producer Gary Kurtz.
They were concerned about what our show would be and that it would infringe in any way on their show. And he gave me a list of the things that he would prefer we not do, and we agreed to a list of things which elude me now. One of them was the laser fires from the gun, so we never did that. We had a little light flash at the muzzle and then an explosion, but we never did those laser streaks and things.
Lucas seemed cool with that, so Larson turned to casting. Now think about this. You have a wagon train in space, and you need a patriarchal leader. Remember Bonanza? They had wagon trains. Why not borrow Lorne Greene?
Doing the show out of space, Battlestar Galactica, that's kind of from other space. What is it like?
What is outer space like?
I would like to know.
Well, it's like Dolly Parton. I mean, you don't believe it, but there it is.
Lorne was the established figurehead. Not that we needed familiar faces, but in terms of a patriarch, I thought that the audience would immediately accept him as that.
The most important thing in any series is the chemistry between people and the magic that's created. And when I met him, I think we felt the warmth.
Lorne Greene was a masterstroke by Larson. It was now the network's turn to ante up. The central hero, Apollo, needed teen beat cover potential. They suggested Richard Hatch, who had previously been in All My Children and the Streets of San Francisco.
I really did not want to do it, not because of Glenn, not because of anything other than the fact I thought, this is just going to be another one of those, they always do a great movie and then they throw out a TV series to benefit from it.
That's exactly what this was, and Larson needed a hot actor. He persistently showed up at the actor's home in a limo and took him out for expensive meals.
I must say that Glenn was very much a gentleman, very charming and very, very articulate, and seemed to care a lot about Battlestar. One of the things that really swayed me, as a matter of fact, is that he did seem to have a passion and a caring for the show.
Larson was no doubt one of the best. Hatch agreed to do the show, but that was an easy sell compared to the battle Larson was about to face.
Dirk Benedict was my toughest sell to the network. I really felt he had something special, and I wanted him, because to me he was Starbuck. He's got that twinkle. He smokes those little cigars, and he's just a charming guy.
ABC said, absolutely not. We're not going to hire that guy. We do not want him. He's not this, he's not this, he's not old enough, he's not talented enough, he's not funny enough, he's not strong enough, he's not sexy enough. All those things were said. Finally, the final line was, he's just not sexy.
I accepted the person that ABC wanted for the role. He walked in the door, and I had my cast assembled, and I think he wound up being like 5'2", while everyone else was 6 feet tall. And I took one look at it and said, you know, this looks like the Wizard of Oz cast walking along with a this and a this and a this, and it didn't match. And I called him the night before and said, I won't go forward with this piece of casting.
I was forced on them, which is one of the reasons why there was such a bad blood between the network and Universal. It was just an ugly beginning.
Beginning is a key word there. The ugliness was about to get uglier.
While Battlestar Galactica was in the early stages of production, a lawsuit was actually initiated against Universal and the series. George Lucas, the director of Star Wars, and 20th Century Fox, the studio that released Star Wars, felt that Battlestar Galactica infringed on the prerogatives of Star Wars.
The show would not have been possible had Fox not given us the facility and all of the tools to be competitive and to use that technology that they and John had, you know, through George Lucas, had developed. And we could not have gone on the air without that cooperation and help. And yet they were the people that were suing us.
We only hoped that they wouldn't at least shut us down, that we could have the chance to show people our story, and that we had something unique and different.
Wait, where are you going? Wait, you're my meal ticket out of the military.
This is the day the world ended, and this is the day after. Saturday at 9 on Sci Fi.
Oh no, not
Tonight at 10. Part of the summer of Sci Fi.
Get exposed.
Okay, let's recap. It's 1978. Star Wars has grossed over $220 million at the box office, and Hollywood is looking for a way to hop on the bandwagon. Their answer is a TV version of Star Wars called Battlestar Galactica. It was like giving candy to a kid.
The press rush obviously built the expectations enormously. I mean, the press that came in for the junket from all over the country actually met on the bridge of the Galactica.
Such publicity and such advanced PR going out there that, you know, everybody in the world knew about it.
Everyone except the Canadians, but Universal had a brainstorm, disguise Battlestar as a feature film, and rack up some box office dollars from the unsuspecting Canadians.
I think it was early on in the making of Battlestar Galactica that the studio realized they was going to spend so much money in making this pilot that they were going to have to release it theatrically.
In the 7th millennium, a cosmic war is raging. A handful of surviving humans escape aboard Galactica, the last remaining Battlestar. They must fight their way across the universe, searching for a legendary planet known as Earth.
So it fell to all of us who were making this to make a much better picture.
In Sense-Around, you will hear. In Sense-Around, you will feel the meteoric impact of intergalactic war.
That the story itself can be told over and over, and the audience will come back and see it again and care about it.
When you see Battlestar Galactica in Sense-Around, you will experience the adventure of space as never before.
The Canadians fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Universal banked some major coin. But south of the border, Universal had bigger fish to fry. The lawyers from 20th Century Fox.
At first they tried to stop the pilot, and that didn't succeed.
Round one to Larson. America would finally see the show that waited more than 10 years to launch.
The audience was primed and ready. It was a 3-hour event heralded by a cover on TV guide.
The night of the premiere, everybody was nervous only because NBC and CBS were throwing everything they could throw at us.
But Battlestar showed no fear. The publicity machine had helped Larson throw his best punch.
We knocked the Emmys off the air, we knocked King Kong off the air, and people on the Academy broadcast were saying, I'd like to say goodnight to my kids, but I know they're watching Battlestar Galactica.
It's a miracle.
So we went to set the next day, and you know, I think there was a great deal of excitement and relief because the show did do so well and did extraordinary numbers against the competition, such tough competition.
So the show was a hit, and with a hit comes fame.
Fame is such an enigmatic experience, because I remember going on the Mike Douglas show, and I remember there was about 400 girls there for the Bay City Dwellers, and I'm walking out the door, and I literally got attacked by 400 girls who were cutting my hair, ripping my clothes off, doing all those things that we'd read about, you know, and I'd never had this experience in my life.
Dirk and Richard became, you know, the golden boys of TV. They were like, you know, the hunks. And it was wonderful. There were, you know, people would come and visit the set and bring their, like, daughters, and these little girls would just go, oh.
When I was a kid, I always thought that hanging out with Apollo would be cool because he was like the nice guy. But now, as an adult, I want to hang out with Starbuck because he gets all the women.
No, Starbuck was a womanizer, and the way the business works, after I did that, then that's what I was seen as. So I did a lot of womanizing. On screen. Off screen was a different story.
Dirk had the chance to play the cowboy, the cigar-chewing, rogue kind of guy who flew off and did missions and was heroic in that kind of a way.
I got in trouble because I was smoking cigars. We got a memo. I said, one more cigar, and he's fired. We're going to fire him. We're going to fire him. And Glenn says, we're going to have to cool it with the cigars, Dirk. So then when we went on the air, and I started getting cigars from every girl in America would send me cigars. People would send me cigars. So then, of course, that work didn't mind the cigars.
And Richard's task was much more difficult because he was the quieter, stronger, more solid kind of hero that was built into those characters.
I found him a very sensitive person and introspective.
I certainly would have liked to have a little bit more of the Starbuck energy, to just a little bit of that to bring. It's almost like taking seasoning and spicing up your omelet. You know, everybody needs a little bad boy in them.
I can't wait till we get to that gambling deck. I got a new system that can't lose. Can't lose? Nope. Richard was very involved from the beginning, was cast in the show from the beginning, sort of, and he was the central character, and you know, he was the son of Lorne Greene, Adama, you know, and that was the dynamic of the show. And it was very serious. See, I came along and always did the light, always looking for the humor and the comedy and the light show, which drove Richard nuts.
But why worry about personality when a good socialator was available?
I was called a socialator, which was pretty much a hooker, a space hooker. And in the pilot, this is pretty much, it was a kids show. So they figured socialator would kind of soft pedal it and it would go over the heads of the little kids, and I think once it aired they went, no, if we're going to do this as a pilot, we're not going to have a hooker as a major character. So once we got through the pilot and I was going to stay in the series, they decided I would become a nurse.
Maybe socialator wasn't a great idea, but Apollo couldn't shake the transient love style. Jane Seymour, who played Apollo's wife, left the show to pursue a film career.
I thought Jane Seymour was the most beautiful woman I'd ever met in my life. And when she left the show, I really wanted her to stay on the show, and she left. And I was really kind of downhearted at that, because she was a terrific actress, and I just had a natural chemistry, feeling for her.
Yeah. He's so romantic.
Yes, he is. All right, Hatch had a broken heart, but in TV, the period of mourning is as long as a commercial break.
Ann Lockhart came on a few episodes later, and I guess they were feeling sorry for poor Apollo and wanted to give him somebody to hang out with, and Ann came on, and fortunately Ann is one of those not only beautiful women, but she's kind of a man's woman, you know? She understands men.
She was wonderful to play because there was a dichotomy there. She had to present this strong image, and underneath it she was really awkward emotionally.
So while Apollo was busy sorting out his love life, Larson is figuring out a way to get more kids to watch the show. How about a cute furry thing?
We wanted to do a robot for the little boy when his Daggett is killed during the destruction of the planet. So the engineers whipped something together.
The Daggett resulted in a conversation where we wanted to have the best aspects of an organic creature like a dog, but the enhanced capabilities that a robot would have, to be able to grab stuff and carry out tasks that a dog wouldn't just physically be able to do.
He got this wonderfully talented little monkey and built the suit around the monkey.
The chimp would not listen to the trainer.
And the trainer took the chimp and took it off stage, and you heard kind of a whack, 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 the chimp noises. And then the chimp docilely came back on stage with the trainer. I've often wanted to do that with actors.
The cute furry thing never fails. Kids everywhere started naming their dogs Muffet. Here, Muffet. Here, Muffet. Sort of makes you want to kill a Cylon.
Well, the Cylons were great villains because they were just evil, evil, evil.
It is done, Imperious Leader.
And they sounded really cool.
By your command, Imperious Leader.
I thought they sounded so cool that I would hold a tape recorder up to the TV every week and tape the episode just so I could listen back.
The Cylons were their traditional enemies from the 12 planets. We considered them advanced creatures and no less real than humans. I mean, they're just a different technology. We thought that they were reasonably scary, and we thought they played very well. But we did have other enemies. We had an episode with these pig-like creatures that trap our guys, and we did other enemies. But the Cylons were, I thought they were one of the neatest looking things that ever graced a movie or television screen. And people loved that. I liked them so much I used the on Knight Rider, so you know, I wasn't about to let those guys disappear.
Most of the Cylons scenes were shot in semi-darkness, of very, very little light, so that they wouldn't reflect the cameras and the lights around them. If you notice that the interior of the Cylon's ship is much darker than a lot of other sci-fi spaceships look, it was because of that various reason. They were also shot in various colors of light, reds at times and blues at times, for the very same reason, and also to accentuate their strobing red eye. When the Cylon was put into their costumes, they were told to go to the men's room first.
We had more fun watching the Cylons sit there in agony, knowing that you know, the time and the challenge of getting those suits off, so that the guys in those suits, these 6'6" guys, could get to the bathroom, you know, before they peed all over themselves. I don't know why someone didn't put a zipper, you know. Or maybe a tin can opener, I don't know, something for emergencies.
Okay, so the Cylon urinary disposal problem was funny, but at the network, not everyone was laughing.
Deliver the Battlestar Galactica, or deliver his head.
Our story continues with Battlestar still at the top of its game. But no matter how well you do, there's always someone who's not happy.
After Battlestar Galactica hit big in the ratings started to slide. Not immediately at first. The series was still in the top 15, which is great for a new series. But you have to take into account the cost of Battlestar Galactica. This was not just an expensive series, this was the most expensive series of all time, and people had predicted it would be the #1 show of the year.
It's not easy being Battlestar Galactica. Now Larson has the bean counters on his back. They didn't seem to get the simple equation. Special effects equals time plus money.
The creation of an effects shot is a pipeline. If you don't put all the pieces into the pipeline now, you won't get anything out into the pipeline in 2 weeks.
The production schedule was so harried, so fast, that the special effects people couldn't keep up, and they had to resort to also repeating footage, so the same shots would appear sometimes multiple times in episodes.
We didn't have the time. I mean, we were right up against air dates to generate, nor the money to generate totally new shots all the time.
I don't want to hear about any problems with...
So the ratings are slipping. Larson needs a quick fix. He digs through his book of tricks and pulls out an oldie but a goldie. Guest stars.
One of the best guest stars on Battlestar Galactica was Lloyd Bridges, which is funny because he was one of the original choices to play Captain Kirk on Star Trek, and he turned it down because he didn't want to go anywhere near science fiction. But he ended up playing a commander on Battlestar Galactica.
I'm buying the first round.
That seemed to help, but Larson needed something bigger, a star with pizzazz, someone everyone loved, someone who could dance.
To hear that Fred Astaire was doing that episode was, I mean, beyond my wildest dreams.
The fact that my name was on the same call sheet with Fred Astaire is something I never ever thought would happen in my whole life.
And we became quite close, as everybody did, I think, who worked with him, because he was very sweet, and very wonderful, very charming, and very vulnerable, and very hard-working. It was like his first job, and he didn't want to screw it up, so they would hire him back.
Astaire may have been good, but any actor is only as good as the words being put into his mouth.
If Battlestar Galactica failed to hit on all thrusters, I think the fault has to lay squarely at the feet of the writers. The writing on the show was not good.
Glenn wanted to push back the original season 1 year so he could develop all the original scripts that he probably had in his imagination or would find over the course of many months. He was not given that luxury. He had to go right into production with no time to develop stories and scripts.
Okay, let's regroup. We blew up lots of spaceships, added a cute furry thing, and tried an old dancer. What more could the public want? Recycled movie themes?
Let's keep bringing themes that the audience looks at on a grand scale, and maybe that will pull in non-science fiction fans. So if you say it's a little like Shane, or it's like The Dirty Dozen, or The Guns of Navarone, it's really just a shorthand.
I think you have to realize the production was at a frenzied pace, and the writers were just desperately trying to keep up. The Magnificent Warriors was a riff on the film The Magnificent Seven. The Guns of Navarone was rehashed, and The Towering Inferno was rehashed as Fire in Space.
What's a producer to do? Even the old recycled movie theme trick didn't work. There has got to be something that can save this show.
I had one ABC executive come in, she says, I got it. Next week, we'll have them discover Earth. I said, yeah, but this is about a wagon train that's supposed to take a long time to find it. If we find it, what do we do? He said, who cares? It'll be a huge number.
With friends like these, who needs Cylons? So Larson has his hands full at the network. Meanwhile, back at the set, Dick and Dirk are going at it.
Richard, don't sabotage me.
He'd be doing these serious scenes, and I'd be doing all the silly stuff. And he thought the show should be more serious. They wrote funny stuff for me, and I got whole episodes that were like, and Richard didn't like that because the show was going off over like this.
I felt like they'd been doing so many shows with Dirk's character, and I really felt like my character was being pushed way to the back. And after the first couple of episodes, he wasn't really getting a chance to really do something. And I said, you know, I really think that, you know, I would like to see some interesting situation where we can use my character. And he literally took the script and just changed the name. Dirk became Richard, Richard became Dirk, or Apollo became Starbuck, Starbuck Apollo, without changing the dialogue.
That's not fair.
Didn't surprise me. And I do know that Richard was in their office trying to control what was written for whom and how many close-ups certain people got.
So Larson is off trying to save the show. Richard's being a pain in the butt, and Dirk doesn't really care one way or the other.
I would just show up and sit in my trailer, smoke my cigar, and show up when they wanted. I was very, very detached about it all, which made me, in some ways, great fun to be around. Richard was very intense, very involved in the show, constantly involved in the scripts and what was written for whom, and he was very involved. And I was, to this day, it hasn't changed. It's the same.
To make matters worse, dark forces seem determined to terminate the show.
George Lucas felt so strongly that Battlestar Galactica stole his visual concepts that he persuaded Fox to sue Universal Pictures over the issue of copyright infringement.
They hate us with every fiber of their existence.
They had 83 points of similarity. One of the points of similarity that they claimed was the male pair bonding between Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, between this older rogue and this younger, idealistic young hero. That that one was plainly absurd.
That character, Starbuck, has been around since theatrical literature began. The rogue con man, the women love, but he's always traveling on. I mean, that's been around forever. George Lucas stole all that stuff from mythology.
Another point of similarity claimed was the battle scenes themselves, ship-to-ship gunnery. And on that one, once again, even Lucas says that he drew much of that from 12 O'Clock High.
They thought they owned space. I mean, you know, it was a series in space. I mean, why didn't they say Star Trek was in space?
One battle at a time, Marvin. Besides, the damage had already been done. Before the end of the first season, Battlestar had claimed another casualty.
By the time I left Battlestar Galactica, I was so beat and beaten and battered that I had absolutely no consciousness of what was going on with it.
After a long, hard year, Battlestar Galactica was caught in a negative vortex and flying out of control.
Doing a never-before-seen student film by director George Lucas, plus the world television premiere of George Lucas in Love on Exposure, tonight at 10. Part of the summer of sci-fi.
Get exposed.
How could I have been so completely wrong? I have led the entire human race to ruin.
Now it's 1979. Season 1 is ending. Battlestar is still in the top 20, but that's irrelevant in Hollywood, where ratings may be gold, but profits are platinum.
At that time, they were just beginning to recognize the power of merchandising and marketing a science fiction show, and how many fans out there, you know, were going to go out and buy those toys and games.
So Universal starts selling anything and everything with the word Battlestar on it. Cash registers are ringing and everyone's happy. Well, almost.
This is a toy of the Colonial Viper from Battlestar Galactica. And a long time ago, when these things came out, a projectile would be fired out of the front of the ship. Unfortunately, a small child in Georgia ended up putting the snout of this toy down his throat and firing the missile.
Not exactly the uplifting PR Battlestar needed. ABC's head honcho telephoned Larson.
Brandon Stoddard called me and told me that it wasn't going to be part of their new schedule. Uh-oh. And he said, when you see what we do, which you'll never guess, you'll understand our thinking and why we had to do this. It's a combination of economics and numbers. He says, but you'll never guess. It's an astonishing move, a very bold move. I says, I'll bet you move Mark and Mindy to our time slot.
Apparently, it was not as big a surprise as we had hoped for.
Shezbut, replaced by an alien in rainbow suspenders. Larson may have seen it coming, and if he did, he kept it a pretty good secret.
I remember waking up in the morning, I can't remember which morning, it might have been a Sunday morning, and my agent calling me and telling me that the show had been canceled. And I have to tell you, I had been, through most of that season, I was frustrated.
I was very sad because I wasn't done with Sheba. She had a lot more exploring of herself to do.
It was early one morning and I was watching Rona Barrett announcing the season lineup. And I heard they canceled Battlestar Galactica and I went, I thought, I never got a phone call. I never got a, that's how I heard about it. I was sitting at home with my family. I was devastated.
When it hit me, and I thought, oh man, that's over with. I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to miss it. And I had a moment of reflection and nostalgia and sadness over the fact that, but that was it.
Contrary to popular belief, Battlestar Galactica was not canceled because of ratings. It was a big hit in the ratings. It's the highest rated science fiction series until The X-Files. It was canceled because it was expensive. It was way too expensive. ABC could put a cheaper show in its slot and make much more money.
When I heard that Galactica was canceled, I was devastated. I was devastated. I mean, this was my favorite show. Every Sunday night, I knew where I was going to be. And I knew that the next day, we would all talk about it. Me and all my friends would talk about the show. Now what?
That's exactly what ABC thought. Now what? The fans were shattered by the cancellation. In fact, a 15-year-old boy actually killed himself. The network needed to think fast.
Galactica 1980 was born out of a 2-hour movie that ABC, agreeing with me that it hadn't had a good finale, did so well again. It just went through the roof. They said, well, let's go back and do it, but the only time slot we has is 7, and can you be on the air in a few weeks?
Galactica 1980 was an attempt to continue the Battlestar Galactica universe without continuing any of the high costs of the first series. And that means that almost all of the special effects for this new series would be stock footage from the first series. This meant that you would have a whole new cast. You wouldn't have to deal with a returning cast requesting more money.
When I first heard about Galactica 1980, of course I was excited. Finally, they're bringing back my show. But when I was watching the commercials, I noticed, where's Starbuck? Where's Apollo? Where are the characters that really did it for me?
Lauren Green called me and said his heart was broken over the fact that he wouldn't be in it. And I don't think I've ever told anybody that, but I guess I reacted somewhat sympathetically to how he felt and rehired him. But it probably would have been better in terms of the cleanness and clarity to have simply gone forward some generations and continued the trek.
Hindsight is everything, my friend.
Battlestar Galactica fans consider Galactica 1980 to be apocryphal. Not only that, they consider it to be crap. They consider it to be a terrible show, and they are joined in that belief by just about every serious science fiction writer, author, critic in the country who would probably consider it the worst show of all time.
When we would watch Galactica 1980, the next day, we would talk about how much we just couldn't stand it. And the only reason we watched it was because we just had this loyalty to the original show.
I think I would do it differently now. I would, and I would not have accepted a 7 o'clock time slot with the kind of rules they had, which no dynamics, no this, no that, had to be educational. So it didn't give us a chance to really do the show we wanted to do.
Even now, none of us will admit that Galactica 1980 ever happened. It's a conspiracy.
So Galactica 1980 is pulled after only 6 episodes. In an ironic twist of fate, the Star Wars lawsuit that plagued the show from the beginning is decided at the end.
It is my understanding that the lawsuit was finally resolved after Battlestar Galactica was canceled, completely in Battlestar Galactica's favor.
It's a miracle.
The federal judge ruled that the 2 stories were completely different and that each had the right to exist.
Victory, how sweet it is. But the battle is not over yet. Battlestar Galactica may fly once more.
Part of the summer of sci-fi.
So Battlestar never made it past its first season. The high budgets, instant fame, lawsuits, and ultimately its overshadowing by the more successful Star Wars. But never say die.
Since Battlestar left the air as a network show, it has been revived in syndication and in a number of novels, and it continues to sort of build a grassroots support. They manufacture the costumes and sell them, and they now have these conventions around the country.
Well, I've got a copy of the original Battlestar Galactica helmet that we made, and a shirt and jacket that's copied off an original shirt and jacket, and that we wear to conventions all over the United States.
There's over 200 websites dedicated to Battlestar Galactica. You know, it's like you can't kill it with a stick.
So Battlestar is back. Websites, conventions, books, reruns, but no new episodes. Once again, remember, this is Hollywood, and we love to borrow. 1999 Star Wars returns, and guess who's close behind?
About 3 or 4 years ago, I began developing a new idea, a new concept for Battlestar Galactica that would literally excite people, impassion people, and give them a vision of how Battlestar could transcend the decades and move from 1978 to 1990 and 2000 and not lose the heart, soul, and spirit of that original story and character and premise.
I saw Richard's trailer at a convention, and I was amazed at what he was able to do. The effects are fabulous, and it was very, very impressive. The music was wonderful, and all of the fans that were watching just stood up and cheered.
So now, more than 20 years later, Hatch wants to bring Battlestar back. But there's a slight problem. It's not his to bring back.
I don't know why he went out and spent money on something he didn't bother to get the rights to. That would be like my going out and doing a version of Star Wars.
Battlestar, to me, is such a great story. I can't imagine going away from it again like they did in 1980. I want to come back to what millions of fans around the world have communicated to me through my webpage, through all the books, through all the interviews, that they are dying to see those original characters.
My feeling is that Richard Hatch is absolutely passionate about reviving the show, and I have heartfelt, tremendous respect for that. But I also feel that intellectually, I have to be in the camp of the artist on this one, who is the birth mother, so to speak, Glenn Larson.
As a parent, you want to sort of protect that which would be next if you were going to do it. And right now, we're in discussions with Universal on a number of approaches to what we want to do next. One of the things that has been explored is an IMAX version, which might in fact lead to a longer 2-hour version of the movie. Having gone in that direction, we have a script at this point that I think is quite fascinating. It's not what I would call a shooting script yet, but it's very magical. It's got some wonderful things in it that are both old and new.
He certainly has the right to do that, and I guess that's the direction they wanted to go in. So for me, that was just fine. You guys do the Commander Kane and Pegasus story. I want to work on the, Battlestar Galactica story.
Why Battlestar Galactica doesn't come back is Richard Hatch and Glenn Larson need to. I mean, there are still egos involved with this show, which drives me crazy. I watched it then, I watch it now, and it's destructive. The energy should be one family, one show. Let's just get it done. That should be the mantra, whatever it takes.
I just wish we could all come together to create the most powerful, most exciting, dynamic Battlestar, and make it the Battlestar that it was not capable of being 20 years ago. But now with the technology available, now with the marketplace being established, the receptivity for this show, this story, there's never been a better time to bring this back.
There's parts of me that say, oh no, we're not going to get back in that inferno. I would envision that if we did an IMAX and a movie, that one day it could come back as a television series, but we want to do it right, and so it may be a while before we're quite ready to make announcements. But we're working at it, and it's a labor of love.
And like all labors of love, the battles never end. When we return, you'll see who has survived and who hasn't.
This is the day the world ended, and this is the day after. Saturday at 9 on Sci Fi.
When it comes to windows, you know Windex Outdoor works great.
Hey, buddy.
But you should see how Windex Outdoor cleans all kinds of outdoor stuff.
Where have they been? Where are they now? Where are they going? It's time for Sciography Roll Call.
all you Battlestar Galactica fans out there, I want you to know, I still have hair, I'm still smoking, and I'm still can fit into my uniform.
John Edward is a man with a gift. He communicates with the dead and reunites them with the living. Witness the phenomenon, Crossing Over with John Edward. Next, part of the summer of sci-fi.
What you are
sexy, all those things. Thank you.
But Charlie's Angels drew fire from the feminists.
Charlie's Angels was a kind of a hand grenade thrown into the feminist battlefield at that time.
Then the most famous angel suddenly quit.
Farrah was her own person. No one was going to tell her.